Do not be afraid. Be open. Be kind. Be gentle. This is the most important thing. And to that end, as the presentation in Sedona initially of the description of how open contact may occur was the 7th step in the Interstellar Alliance social experiment, this is the 8th step. The learning to talk, the learning to communicate, the learning to dig down and to not be afraid, to share, to discuss, to see what is truly in your heart of hearts and how you have more in common than you think. Allowing yourself to come together, to move together, and to move forward in this way will allow open contact to occur in the most positive and constructive and beneficial way possible. Because it is, at this point, no matter what, it is inevitable. For there are many reasons for it to be so. Now, we will say one more thing before you begin your questions. The 8th step also includes a brief communication at the end of all of your questions today. Not before, but at the end. So you will let us know when your questions are done, when your timing is up. We will introduce briefly an entity from the Interstellar Alliance that we have never introduced before. In our language, this entity is known as Ashayia. It translates roughly into your language as the Oracle. The Oracle will deliver an oracular comment at the end of all your questions today. And part of the 8th step, and pay attention to this, it is vital, is that when this comment, when this oracular transmission is delivered, it will not be explained, it will not be interpreted by us, it will not be clarified beyond what is said by us. This will be left up to you. This will be another test, another observation of how you decide in working together to interpret what the Oracle will have said. When this transmission occurs, it will be repeated 3 times. We would strongly encourage you to actually write down what the Oracle will say, so that there will be no confusion and no misunderstanding of the actual wording of that transmission. But the interpretation, the clarification, the understanding or misunderstandings will be left up to you to have, and ideally will spur conversations among you, not only with those who may believe and see as you do, but with those who do not. To truly understand that you are in the same boat, all of you. There is something bigger than all of you, something bigger than your political divisions that is about to occur in your reality, that is coming up in the near future, that has to do with the ramifications of what contact actually means on your planet. And like I said in the initial monologue, the fact that we have made a comment you perceive as political will not be done again. We will now focus only on the idea of what you need and what you require and how you will benefit from understanding more clearly the information that we have delivered to you for many years about things like the principles of the formula and how you can create your reality to be more in alignment with your true essential frequency. For there is no more point and no more readings and no more observations that need to be made. The Interstellar Alliance Council has all the information it needs now to make an assessment of exactly how, when, and why contact will occur. And when we talk about the idea of open contact, we mean simply for those portions of your civilization that have not been experiencing what you would call public open contact in its history for quite some time. We have already reminded you that there are many indigenous civilizations and cultures on your planet that have been experiencing contact for generations. So when we talk about the idea of open contact, we mean for the entirety of the cultures on your planet, for no one to be left out and nothing to be left out. So, allow yourselves to rest easy, to take a deep breath, to move forward in peace, in love, in harmony, and again, most importantly, in communication. To talk with one another, to be okay with differences, but to not be insistent or resistant or headstrong about your point of views. Find the deep commonality between why anyone with any perspective desires what they desire. For the real reasons, the true underlying reasons, aside from the political or social or economic expressions of them, or even the religious expressions of them, the true underlying reasons will unite you. It is important for you to be united in approaching open contact. For again, when it occurs, we will be involved in every aspect of your society, every single one. You will interweave with us. We will interweave with you to become one society eventually. That is what joining your galactic family means. So, be prepared, be aware, be awake. So now I remind you the two principles: staying in a positive state, and it's how you respond to what happens that makes a difference. In some senses, in addition to what the oracle will say at the end of these questions, will mostly be the answers to any question you have in this transmission of a political nature. So be prepared for extremely brief responses to any question that may concern your politics, because we have already addressed, in whatever way we need to, the idea of anything you may be asking that has to do with your elections and your politics. So pay attention to what we've already said, because those are your answers, and those are the only answers we are going to give from this day forward with regard to that particular topic. So please now, if you will, in return for the gift you are giving us of allowing us to hold your hands together, walking forward toward contact, in return, how may I serve you? Please ask your questions at this time.
Thank you, Bashar. We do have a lot of political questions. Should I try and condense them?
If at all possible, because again, most will have the same answers that we have already given.
Okay. Did you observe our reactions to your political statement in Sedona? What did you observe? Did you accelerate the splitting?
We accelerated the potential of the split to see exactly how far the divisions that exist within your culture would carry you in the split. How far on either side you would go from the glass wall, away from it. And in that observation, this is why we now say It is so important for each of you, in whatever reality you are in, to come back toward the glass wall, to see each other through that glass wall, to reach through that glass wall, to make it permeable, to connect, to discuss, and to talk, because this is, in a sense, your final opportunity before contact to learn to come together, to learn to find out what the true issues underlying all the division and divisiveness are in your society. For it is something that isn't actually that real. It is something that is artificial to a degree. When you truly look at the underlying reasons for why you have the perspectives that you do, again, you will find that you have more in common than you think. It is time to talk. It is time to conference. It is time to convene.
If we are existing in a reality where we can see that the male has been elected, can it still mean that we are observing this through a glass wall, or does it mean that we are essentially on the other side of this glass wall with this elected person? If so, is there still time to switch sides by following our passion and going more neutral?
We have just answered this question.
When you made your statement in Sedona, I presume you knew that the outcome of the election would be the male winning. Knowing this, your taking responsibility comment makes sense, that we must take responsibility for this path that we've chosen. If we voted for the female, what does it mean to take responsibility here?
What it means is that at this point, as we have said, it doesn't matter who you voted for. Taking responsibility is taking responsibility to your reaction and response to the transmission that we delivered. That's what we mean by taking responsibility. And we are now discussing the idea of the actions necessary to take responsibility for your responses and reactions by coming together and having open discussions, clear discussions, by understanding each other, by listening to each other, by really talking with each other. This is what's important now, and would be a true expression of your willingness to take responsibility for the initial reactions and responses that you had to our comments in our transmission. This is now what we're watching. This is now what we're observing. This is what's important to move forward, no matter who you voted for, no matter what your election is. As we said, this is a play playing out, and what's going on behind the scenes is actually more about what's really going on your planet than it is in terms of the play act that happens to be your elections. For that is a screen.
Are you providing transmissions to parallel realities where the US elected the female in this recent election? Do you personally find certain timelines more exciting than others? Compared to timelines where the female may have won this election, what positive aspects or opportunities do you see within the current timeline, both on a collective and individual basis?
I believe you are beginning to see how the way in which a lot of these questions are framed are now becoming irrelevant based on what we have already said.
Okay. Is World War III coming?
We talked about the idea of the imbalanced energy that is typically referred to as masculinity might lead in that direction. It doesn't mean it will happen. It will lead in that direction. Remember, the idea of what you might refer to as World War III does not necessarily have to be and never will be a nuclear exchange. So the idea is that it may lead by an imbalance of energies that are typically referred to as masculine style energies of aggressiveness, will lead closer and closer to the idea of what you will experience or call World War III. Again, it doesn't mean it will actually happen if you are willing to understand what we are saying to you in this transmission today.
Okay.
We are now speaking on behalf of the Interstellar Alliance Council. And we are giving you the result of the discussions that are ongoing in this council. So we would strongly encourage you to pay attention to the way in which information is being given to you, to listen to the wording, for it is precise. We said things would lead in certain directions, not that it was inevitable. But nevertheless, by allowing yourselves to begin true communication, you can pull yourselves back to the center, to be with one another, and to empower yourselves in a multitude of ways that will allow you to dispel the veil that you think is your political reality, which is nothing but a smokescreen for what is really going on behind the scenes, so that you can truly open your eyes and see your world for what it is and how you can truly decide together to change it in ways that will allow you to join the galactic community in a positive way.
I'm really excited about open contact, but I'm also starting to feel uneasy. I feel like it's almost like being excited about the second coming of Jesus. And I never want to be the one to be tied to dogma or feel like I am a follower, even if I'm a follower of Bashar. I also don't want to be accused of being in some kind of cult. Can you help me with these feelings of uneasiness?
Again, it's all about self-empowerment, taking responsibility for yourself, being responsible to others to be yourself. The idea, as we have expressed many times, of what you call the second coming is the awakening of the Christ consciousness within each and every heart of every person. It is not about dogma. It is about claiming your own spiritual relationship to all that is, to Source. It is about being the unique individual that you are and being of service to others by being who you are.
Our political system is struggling to function as intended by our founding fathers, with corruption in politics and highly qualified candidates unable to compete against dishonest ones. What steps can we take to reform our government and improve its functionality? What principles or strategies should guide us how our country is governed?
We have told you what the next step is.
Would you like to share your impressions on the congressional hearing on UFO UAPs that took place on November 13th?
Any discussion of this is a step toward open contact.
Wonderful. Will the UAP hearings before the U.S. Congress be the vehicle where Pleiadians are introduced to the world as part of disclosure?
Possibly. This has not yet been fully decided.
In the light of the election cycle, we can truly see what diverging train tracks look like from the political left and right, based on your definitions of positive and integration and negative and separation. Would choosing either political side and shunning the other be fundamentally negative? Shouldn't we be integrating both sets of viewpoints in order to remain positive?
As we have just said, yes, it's time to come together. It's time to look at the train tracks in this way. There is a track, meaning one rail. There is another track, one rail. There is a third track in the center. Allow yourself to view all three of these tracks, all three of the rails. Allow yourself to be on the train that may be using these two rails, and you can be on the train that may be using these two rails, but understanding that there is a common rail in the center. Allow yourselves now to come back to the glass wall, as we have just encouraged you to do. Now is the time for this. All of the preparation, all of the buildup, all of the positive, all of the negative. Again, a transmission from the oracle at the end of these questions will highlight this idea in a way that will allow you to fathom in your own way at your own time the interpretations and meanings that will allow you to move forward. We will not comment on the interpretation. We will not comment or respond if you ask us, did we get the right interpretation? There is no right interpretation in the ultimate sense. You will each decide for yourselves, and you will each decide together what the interpretation actually means, but it is being delivered because it is time for it to be delivered, and it is something that will create a little bit of mystery in you to allow you and encourage you to explore that mystery together, to understand in fullness and in the fullness of time toward contact what it actually means for you.
Bashar, as a first contact specialist, will you be the one making physical open contact with Earth when it's time for the Sasani to do so? And since you have connections to Earth, how do you feel about this? And what does this mean for you personally?
I will be among the first contact specialists from my civilization, yes. Obviously, this is representative of my passion, or I wouldn't be doing it. So that's what it means for me personally. I am very passionate about interacting with humans on Earth because I understand and I can see, I can observe the incredible potential, the incredible power you have to transform your world into heaven on earth. But it requires that you come together to do so.
We are very excited to meet you.
As are we to meet all of you. But the yous that we will be meeting will not be the yous that you are today. So become the yous that are the yous who will meet the us's.
I've been following your steps of the social experiment for open contact, but I struggle with fear when it comes to gathering groups for CE5. I'm fine practicing alone, but fear of being labeled crazy in my conservative community holds me back from involving others. How can I overcome this fear and take action without missing out?
Do you understand that the leader of the congressional UAP investigation is a conservative? Therefore, both sides are interested in the idea of bringing out information that has to do with disclosure and open contact. Learn what is going on and who the players are, and that may assuage your fears by understanding that you can rely on simple information to describe what is going on, and that many different people from many walks of life and many belief systems are coming together with regard to the idea of disclosure and the discussions of UFOs and UAPs. And this is what we're talking about. It is one of the areas in which all beliefs can come together. The very concept of open contact can be connective and uniting, no matter what your personal, philosophical, or political, or economic, or social beliefs may be. It can drive you to explore what's at the core of all of them in a way that you can begin true, deep communication with one another, looking past the surface representations that are not as important as the deep internal desires on a very simple level for what every human truly needs in life, to feel that they are worthy, that they are loved, that they are heard, that they belong. So let open contact and anything that has to do with it bring you together. Fear not. You are not alone in that endeavor.
If the Pleiadians are going to be the first ones to land, why don't we hear much about them or from them?
There is actually a lot of information about them if you will pay attention to the idea of things like UFO sightings. You will find that most of the sightings, the vast majority at this time, are actually Pleiadian ships. They're getting you used to their presence in a variety of ways. So even though your news programs may not carry awareness of who these ships belong to, I'm telling you now, most of them are Pleiadian ships.
Are the ships on the videos that were published, are those the Pleiadian ships?
Some of them.
Can you describe what they look like?
There are a variety of types. Some of them, like our ships, are triangular. Some of them are saucer shaped. Some of them are cylindrical. It just depends upon the ship's function.
What technology was given to us by ETs in the past 50 years? And what will be the first 2 or 3 technologies that they will share, or you will share with us when open contact occurs?
As we have said, holographic recordings of your entire history, going back thousands upon thousands of years. Certain kinds of genetic, vibrational medical understandings, what you may term free energy devices, will also be part of some of the technologies that we will aid and assist you with, among other things.
And what technologies were given to us by ETs in the past 50 years?
Some of the ideas that were understood and reverse engineered from some of the retrieved UFOs that humans on Earth got their hands on have aided and assisted some of your technological breakthroughs over time with the aid and assistance of interactions with certain extraterrestrials and a few of your scientists. We are not going to go into specifics about that at this time.
Okay. Humans have a history of mixing genes with other species and civilizations. For instance, DNA testing revealed that my mother has 2% Neanderthal ancestry. Given this history of genetics mixing, my question is twofold. First, is it true that the Pleiadians are known for being exceptionally good-looking? Second, if so, are the Greys and hybrid aware that after open contact, the 6th and 7th hybrid races might include significant percentage of Pleiadian DNA if they mingle with humans?
There will be some mixing of Pleiadian DNA. There will be some mixing of hybrid DNA. This is all we will say at this time. Look to your understanding of Willa Hilla Chrissing to have a better idea of what we're saying.
Is she a mix?
Yes, of course she is.
With what?
Human and hybrid. And many other things.
You've been mentioning the mantis beings more frequently.
Yes.
You describe them as being very wise and as the overseers of the Greys being in the hybridization program. I'd love to learn more about their background and evolution as a species. Could you share which planet or system they originate from? What does it say on their Interstellar Alliance ID cards?
They originate from a dimension that is very similar in vibration to the angelic realm. They do not originate from a planet.
Do they actually look like praying mantises, and do they have any connection with the insect on Earth?
They do have a strong resemblance to the idea of the praying mantis insect. We will go into the idea of the connections that may exist between them and the praying mantises on your planet at another time in another transmission.
Did gray beings develop technology to travel to a parallel universe, our Earth, on their own, or using help from another race? If so, what race was it, and in exchange for what?
Again, they were aided and assisted by the mantis beings and a few others to have the technology to tunnel into parallel realities. Again, the idea was to make sure that they did not die out. It is of vast importance that certain experiences for the soul continue to develop, to afford opportunities for soul growth in the cosmos. This takes on awareness and knowledge of a whole different level of understanding of how the soul chooses to have experiences in physical incarnations in order for its forward momentum, its expansion, and its growth. There are programs that exist, so to speak, aided and assisted by highly advanced beings that provide many different forms of opportunities in physical incarnational realities for souls to grow. It is important that these do not die out. Therefore, it was perpetuated for the good of all, for the greater good of the soul's growth within existence.
Can you please elaborate upon the holographic device that you've spoken of regarding unveiling of humanity's true history? How would individuals access this device? Would there be multiple devices, etc.?
Yes, there can be multiple devices. Some of them will take on different appearances. Some of them will be spherical, almost like you're looking into a crystal ball. Some of them will sort of be tablet-like and be semi-transparent, where images will appear either over them or within them.
So you mentioned that this first contact event from 2025, 2026, so is being pushed to 2028, 2029. So referring to that one, this person says, I was wondering what would happen if the government, in their infinite lack of judgment, were to attack these ships.
Nothing would happen because any attack can be repelled easily.
How do your people address the problem of scarcity or scarce resources? Here, our economists have concluded that capitalism is the best method for allocating scarce resources, but this method seems very problematic in its current stages.
Why would you assume that we have a scarcity of resources? We can travel the stars. There is an abundance of just about anything out here. There is no scarcity. This is one of the reasons why it's so important for Earth to become a member of the galactic community, so that you can understand that there is an abundance of everything for all. There is no scarcity. That's an illusion that you have created on Earth.
There are some other individuals on social media that claim to channel Bashar. Can you clear this up for us, please?
As we have often said, this channel, known as Darryl, is the only outlet through which we will come. In the past, there have been a few that we have aided and assisted to get used to the idea of channeling other entities that they have made agreements with. But at this time, and for many, many years, this channel has been the only one through which we will come. No one else channels me as an individual. There are others who may channel different members of my society, but no one else channels my identity.
Do you and the Sasani people have facial expressions? For example, when you communicate telepathically and say something funny, do you physically smile or are you expressionless?
Of course, we have facial expressions. We often laugh.
I had an encounter with grays in September 2024. I remember stepping outside into my front yard. There were gray, shadowy figures in my front yard and at my front door, and I knew they were grays, so gray ETs. I was lifted up into the air on board the ship. I was approached by a gray being. In response to her approach, I spontaneously generated a strong, large, high vibrational energy field. She smiled and kissed me on the cheek. If grays have no emotions, why did she smile and greet me with a kiss? Why did I generate such a powerful energy field? I've never done anything like this in daily life on Earth.
First of all, again, this is a hybridized gray, something closer to hybrid beings, and they have emotionality. As we have said, you cannot just simply lump the grays into one thing. There are many factions, and many have been hybridized and developed in certain ways. The idea is that exposure to her allowed you to feel your own true energy field on a higher frequency level. This delighted her, and that's why she kissed you, because you responded in a way that showed her that you were ready to accept that level of vibrational power in your own energy, that you were ready to be more of yourself. Therefore, she rewarded you with the kiss.
It's beautiful. Can you share more about the Greys' current and recent activities and interactions with us? Are they still abducting people since we are so close to open contact?
Again, remember that there are different things going on in those encounters. The idea is that very often people are brought up aboard the ships to interact with the hybrid children, to teach them about the idea of living on Earth. So there are many different reasons why people may still be being brought on board the ships.
I would like to know the purpose of taking children on a spaceship. My husband was taken as a child many times, and he's very angry about it.
He is very angry because he was never given the tools to understand that it was his decision as a spirit to participate in the hybridization agenda. The children can relate to the hybrid children a little bit more easily. He is just angry about it because he felt out of control because he wasn't properly prepared. So he can get over that if he is willing to understand that he made an important choice to be of service in the hybridization program. And he can ask for those encounters to happen on his own terms. Now,
I'm excited about the prospect of open contact, but a part of me doesn't want to get too excited because I know I will be disappointed if it doesn't come to fruition. How can I balance my excitement with acceptance for whatever comes to pass?
if you are interested at all in following the formula, you will remember that one of the steps is having no insistence or assumption about anything, just letting it play out. So remember, it's not absolutely vital in general that a society has to have open contact with extraterrestrial beings. So the idea is let it play out. The most important thing is that you live your life in the way that you need to, in a way that is exciting for you, in a way that is true for you. If anything is going to lead to open contact, it will be that. But it doesn't have to lead to open contact for you to live an exciting and passionate and creative life. So don't insist on that idea as being more important than you living your own life. That's the most important thing. Open contact will occur in those realities where it is important for it to occur, where it is relevant for it to occur. We are telling you that it's relevant for your reality, but again, that shouldn't sway you from simply following your passion for its own sake. Remember, regardless of what you think it's going to get you. So when you drop your insistence that it has to lead to something in particular, like open contact, then there will be no disappointment because you will simply have lived a life that feels fulfilled, that feels creative, that feels loving, that feels passionate. And that's the most important thing.
But isn't contact inevitable within the next 5 years, like you mentioned?
Yes. As I said, this is what is relevant for your society. I'm simply saying it doesn't have to be a condition for you to live a life of passion and joy. Don't make it so. Don't rely on us for you to live a life of passion and joy. That's what we're saying.
In a previous transmission, you mentioned that the COVID vaccine was not harmful. Many people have either died or suffered serious side effects following the shots, both immediately following them and weeks, months, years later. Could you please explain why you made this statement? Could genetics, soul contracts, or belief systems affect how the vaccines affected us?
First of all we said is that the COVID vaccine is basically generally relatively safe, and that still holds to be true. The idea of millions of people being negatively affected by it is erroneous data. Your data is skewed. There have been some side effects. Some of it has to do with, yes, what you said, pre-existing conditions, life path choices, genetic malfunctions, so on and so forth. But the idea of the percentage of individuals in your society who actually experience negative effects from the vaccine are relatively rare. So you have false information that millions of people were harmed by it. The statistic is more along the line of less than 5 people per 100,000 that were affected negatively by the vaccine for one reason or another, because of the choices on their life path, because of their pre-existing conditions, so on and so forth. It still holds true that the vaccine is generally, relatively speaking, safe for most people. But it's up to you to decide what is true for you. Nevertheless, your data is skewed.
Thank you. We have some historical questions. Why was it so problematic for the Anunnaki to mine gold? With their advanced technology, couldn't they just tap into the frequency of gold and, quote, extract it from Earth? Were
It's
they
still a big
successful?
job. It's still a big planet. And as we have said, they were sort of under what you would call a time crunch. Therefore, they needed assistance. They would never on their own have been able to extract enough of the material to aid and assist their world in time, had they not had that assistance.
And were they successful in saving their planet?
To some degree, yes. But again, remember that what they did in creating Homo sapiens was against their laws. So the idea is that then, once Homo sapiens existed, the Anunnaki that had recalled those groups back home then had to guide, had to watch over. They still continued to extract some gold, but did it in a way that simply added to what they had already collected. They used it in positive ways for the balancing of the atmosphere of their planet, but nevertheless were also consigned to figuring out other ways in which that could be done, so they did not take advantage any further, any longer, of the creation of Homo sapiens in a negative way.
And what eventually happened to their planet? Is it still around?
It's still around, but it exists in a different dimension, and it is more connected to the star system you know as Cygnus.
And what do they call it, the planet?
Are you asking for the Anunnaki's own language for their own world?
Yes,
Ashayia.
thank you. Many people use the biblical book of Revelation to point to events happening in the future, which they think is now. Others say the book was referencing Rome at that time. Are there really any truly prophetic verses in the Bible that corresponds to events happening now?
Yes, some of them. We're not going to go into detail about that. It serves no relevant purpose at this time.
Researchers at the Pyramid of Giza discovered what they call the Pyramid Inch stone, which they have extrapolated along with corridors of the pyramid to be a timeline of the future corresponding to major world events. The timeline appears to end in 2033. Is there any validity to this, and does it coordinate with open contact occurring in this window?
Yes, it does, because everything changes after that point. As we said, open contact will occur most likely within the next 5 years, and the changes that will result from that will start to really impact the direction of humanity from that point forward. So basically, your 5 years leads up to 2030, and then 3 years after that, you will see a massive directional shift in humanity between 2033 and 2050 that will reset the direction of humanity for its future evolution. So yes, it's generally accurate in terms of when humanity changes direction and shifts its frequency in a new direction that will help it merge with the galactic family. It will be in the future remembered as an important shifting year, 2033, an important year of shift, an important direction change, what you call a sea change.
33 is also an important number. Is that correct?
Yes.
Mhm.
And this is why we operate in the idea of threes, because creation and existence is a trinity. Therefore, vibrationally speaking, the double 33 is a very powerful transformational gate that you are going to walk through.
In 1566, there was a UFO phenomenon over the city of Basel, Switzerland. Many discs appeared to be flying over for a day. This sighting reappeared 3 weeks later. It was recorded by many people in the local newspapers. What was that? Is that city a vortex for UFOs?
It is, but what they experienced was a wave from one parallel reality to your parallel reality of another wave of the grays coming through.
I read a book by Ramtha where he mentions events that are supposed to happen to our planet. He spoke about the fall of the world as we currently know it. Many things I learned from him resonate with me, but the idea of societal collapse does not. You have often spoken about the fact that we create our own reality. Does this mean that the idea of the collapse doesn't does this mean that if the idea of the collapse doesn't resonate with me, it won't happen? Also, could you share some information you might have about Ramtha?
We will share nothing about Ramtha because we do not endorse or deny any source of information. But the idea of the collapse is simply that you are using a negative definitional word. We have already talked quite extensively about the idea that your entire society is about to be reset and restructured, especially with regard to open contact. So you can look at that as the dissolution of your old society, a collapse, if you will, but a reinvention, a restructuring of the idea. And you are part of that. So you'll be around for it, but you don't have to see it as a negative collapse. See it as a restructuring, a redirecting, a reinventing.
My 5-year-old autistic son recently came to me with a piece of paper. He had written Orpek on the paper. He told me that this is his spirit name. He's only 5, and we do not really discuss these things. He asked me what my spirit name is, and I didn't know what to tell him. Why did my son do this? What is the
Because
spirit
children are
name?
still strongly connected to spirit, especially up to the ages of 7 and 10 even. They still know their connection to spirit. They still can communicate with spirits. So it's natural for a child to remember themselves as a spirit, as a soul, and can transfer a lot of information about the spirit realm to those in physical reality. So pay attention.
Can you explain the concept of time in a way the physical human mind can understand? What is time, and what role does it serve?
Well, as we said, time is a side effect of your consciousness shifting through multiple parallel realities billions of times per second. The idea of time is so that you can experience the process of creation. It's like saying, in a timeless state, I'm going to tell you a story. So here's the story from a timeless perspective. Once upon a time, and they lived happily ever after. What happened to the middle of the story? What happened to how did we get from once upon a time to happily ever after? What was the process? What was the adventure? What was the experience? What were the lessons? How did it grow? How did it change? What was the path? So, time exists within the soul, a certain focus of the soul, to experience the process, to experience the story unfolding, so that you can discover yourself from a new point of view. That's how creation expands. As we have said, the structure of existence never changes. What changes constantly, what expands creation, is your relationship to it, your perspective of it, your experience of it. And that's what time is for, to allow existence to continue to expand infinitely so that you can discover yourself from a new point of view, which allows existence and all that is to experience itself from a new point of view, constantly, constantly, constantly experiencing itself, changing, expanding, growing, learning, being new. But the structure never changes. It is what it is. Existence is what it is. The experience of existence only happens with the idea of time. Otherwise, there's no experience. Things just are.
Is it possible to become too dependent on our permission slips, such as with crystals? I had something happen and I reached into my pocket to hold on to the crystals, and I realized I'd forgotten to put them in there and started to freak out, thinking I needed the crystals to keep me in the positive, even though deep down I know it's not true.
Well, if deep down you know it's not true, then you know that the answer to your question is yes, of course. Anything can become an addiction from the negative side. The idea of anything you use as a permission slip is to teach you that the power is coming from you. It's just that you happen to be using a particular device that aligns with your belief system to allow yourself to be more of who you are. So, yes, if you rely on it more than you need to, then yes, it can become a crutch. It can become an addiction. So the fact that you panicked when you realized you didn't have it might be a good indication that you need to start allowing yourself to wean yourself from that so that you can understand more clearly that you're the one that has the power and that the permission slip is just allowing you to be more aware of that. It's not coming from the permission slip. It's coming from you.
And this next person says, my contact crystal broke. Is that a symbolic representation of something? I still feel my heartbeat when I do the meditation on it.
Yes, in that sense, it doesn't really mean that much. The idea of the contact crystal breaking can be slightly a permission slip recognition that the idea of open contact has been slightly postponed. But that's all. Don't worry about it.
Can you tell us why it's been postponed?
I already did, didn't I?
Is it
Your
that?
reactions to the comments that were made act as a barometer that tell us whether you are or not ready for contact. So there is still a little more work to do. There is still a little more clarification to be had. And this is why we encourage all of you to start talking to one another, regardless of your belief system. Do that work, and the nature of open contact will become more positive. Refuse to do the work, stay sequestered in your differences and divisiveness, open contact will take on a different flavor and a different color. It will still happen, but you may prefer the version of open contact that is more representative of coming together than being divisive. That's all we will say about that.
This person says they saw Wicked last night, the movie, and it was a thrilling experience. Why is the story of the Wizard of Oz and its iterations so significant in our culture?
Well, again, what we've been talking about, the idea of two different points of view that can come together or that can be flung apart. Which will it be? So use your magical selves, be the wizards that bring the two sides together so that the land of Oz, your world, can live in peace and harmony and respect instead of being so divisive. The splitting prism doesn't mean that you have to experience the idea of divisiveness. It simply means that you will experience whatever is relevant for you. It's not a contradiction or a mutually exclusive state of affairs to the idea of harmony and peace on your world. So create a new reality. You can shift. You're still splitting to new realities. You're still moving, still shifting through different parallel versions of Earth. But you can certainly do that with more togetherness than divisiveness. We would love to welcome all of you. Not that we have to, but we would love to welcome all of you and introduce all of you to your galactic family. But you're the ones in charge. Remember, fear and negativity are not conducive to open contact. That's all we will say. And we are not pointing fingers at any one side. You both have an abundance of fear and negativity. Let it go. Talk to one another. Support each other. Explore each other. Find the deeper issues in each other that you can all agree on. Recognize in each other's character what is representative of a willingness to be a true person and what is representative of being something out of alignment. So, discern, but work together to do so. Again, there's a lot happening you are unaware of on many different levels. Come together, find out what that is, make a declaration of true independence. Move forward together. The time is close approaching for the introduction of the oracle. Are you done with your questions for the moment?
Yes, that is the end of our questions. Is there anything else you would like to add?
We will now add and allow and facilitate what the oracle will say. Once again, we remind you, before the oracle speaks, the two most important things that we have shared with all of you at this time on your planet to move you toward contact in a positive, creative, peaceful, harmonious way is to remember that it's not about what happens, it's about what you do with what happens that makes the difference, and to stay in a positive state, no matter what manifests, so that you can get a benefit from it. Remember those two things, along with what the oracle now has to say. Again, we encourage you, since the oracle will repeat this 3 times in its transmission, to write it down so there is no misunderstanding. And again, I remind you, we completely leave it up to you to understand, to divine the meaning and the mystery and the interpretation of what the oracle will say. We will not help you with this. This is left in your hands. But use it creatively. Come from your heart. Come from your soul. Everything will be fine. Everything will be fine. We will now allow the facilitation of the oracle, who will repeat the transmission 3 times. The dark night of the soul calls forth the light within. And when the light of truth comes forth, the blind shall see once again. The dark night of the soul calls forth the light within. And when the light of truth comes forth, the blind shall see once again. The dark night of the soul calls forth the light within. And once the light of truth comes forth, the blind shall see once again. This is a being from the Interstellar Alliance Council. Again, it translates in your language simply as the oracle. This was an oracular transmission. There may be more in the future as we get closer to the idea of open contact. We will leave it to you to ponder the mysteries inherent within the oracular transmission. We will thank you at this time for allowing this transmission to occur. Our deep appreciation to all of you. Our unconditional love to all of you. Take heart. Be at peace. Continue to breathe. Relax into the remainder of the transmission. Just breathe. Just breathe. Just breathe. All right. So